Alright, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story, you guys probably know what it's going to be. The latest physique update from Kalecinski in Vegas. Finishing out the duration of his prep here in the States. We're now 1 day under 2 weeks out. We're getting that close to the Olympia. And it goes without saying here that looks incredible. Conditioning-wise, incredible. Detail-wise, incredible. His back, to me, looks improved. A lot of people have criticized his back at past showings, but I think it looks pretty good here. Now, granted, he's in that Dragon's Lair posing room, and that posing room lighting is phenomenal. So there's also that. They definitely have the goon light in the Dragon's Lair. And then if you look at this comparison here, who is the best bodybuilder on Instagram put this up. This is a comparison between and Ramon Dino's back double bicep. And I think even though Ramon's was a couple days ago, it was earlier last week, the detail that has, I think, is way beyond what we're seeing from Ramon. Even though they both have comparable lighting here, they both have pretty good goon light, but the detail, the conditioning, specifically if you look at lower body compared to Ramon's, the hamstrings are way more dialed in. Obviously, the glutes are way more dialed in. That's the thing that is that's been his trademark thing lately, is these striated glutes. Which, to be honest, if you think about it, is kind of unfortunate because classic physique, unlike bodybuilding, the trunks don't really show the glutes as much. There's really not an emphasis on that in classic physique, having that level of conditioning in the glutes, just like back in the day, prior to like the 80s. In regular bodybuilding, nobody had striated glutes. That's kind of what classic physique. So I'm kind of curious about that, because if classic is really to harken back to the old days, no one really had striated glutes. So it almost makes me wonder, is there really a point to being that condition? But obviously has done very well in terms of his placings lately, so clearly the judges like that look. And you really got to be impressed when a young guy like this has this type of discipline and consistency when it comes to conditioning. I cannot wait to see Urz's final presentation at the Olympia this year. Classic physique, very exciting division. All these young guys are phenomenal, and I really would like to see them all do well, but only one of them can win. I'm curious to see. I've got a feeling could be top 3. Now, next up in the news, we've got multiple updates from around 2 weeks out from Samson Dauda, and this is a guy that's generated a lot of conversation with his incredible size and the structure that he maintains with that size. We've talked about this at length, but he was the second heaviest guy in terms of sheer weight during this Olympia build-up, weighing over 330 pounds at one point during his Olympia offseason. I don't know what he's going to actually weigh on stage. I would personally be surprised if he was 300 pounds on stage. I have a feeling he'll probably be more like in the 280s, probably 50 pounds lighter than he was in that offseason. I would really be shocked if he was close to 300 pounds. But 280s is still a massive bodybuilder. You guys can see the size that he has. He's very complete. He's even got good calves. Oftentimes you see bigger guys like this, they don't have good calves, and that's one thing that I've noticed about Samson. He's got great calves, very balanced, very well-proportioned individual. And my question with Samson, the reason why I don't have him in the top 10 is a couple reasons. Number one, I'm unsure about the conditioning. We haven't seen him next to these top guys. We haven't seen him with added size. We've seen him next to some of the top guys at the Arnold Classic, where he was able to place 4th. But to be honest, that Arnold Classic was not the deepest Arnold lineup. Most of those guys were not top Olympians. Some of those guys aren't even at this Olympia. But it was still a good placing for him at the Arnold Classic. And he's clearly a lot bigger here, a lot bigger than he was at the Arnold Classic. So I'm wondering about the conditioning. And I saw people say, well, you made this argument that you can't say Samson's going to be top 10 because you've never seen him against these guys before, because you put Krizo in your top 10. I have Krizo in 9th in my predictions. And here's my justification for that. We've seen neither of these two guys against the top Olympians, but we have seen Samson do other pro shows. And in a pro show that had some of these Olympians, Samson was 4th. Now, Krizo we've never seen against any of the top guys. In the only pro show that he did, he took 1st. So whereas we've seen Samson get beaten by some of these guys, we haven't seen Krizo get beaten by these guys, but we also haven't seen Krizo beat them. So that's kind of the difference between Samson and Krizo to me. But could Samson be top 10? Absolutely. Like I said, this top 10 is probably the hardest to predict that I've ever seen. And I personally have been very impressed with everything that we've been seeing from him thus far. Now, next up in the news, Big Ramy. While we're still not seeing much from Big Ramy in the way of physique updates, we did get another training session, however briefly, with Dennis James. And it's worth pointing out that we are continuing to see less and less of Big Ramy as the show grows closer, whereas with some of these other guys, we're starting to see more and more of them as they're getting in better and better shape. Nick Walker, for example, Hunter Labrada, for example. So I wouldn't expect to see much more from Ramy until maybe the last couple days before the show, or maybe we're not going to see anything else from him at all until the day of the show, which seems to be the idea behind this. That would be my guess at why we're not seeing much from Ramy. I don't think it's lack of confidence. I don't think it's lack of thinking he doesn't look good enough. I just think they're shutting it down and leaving that final version of Ramy for the stage, which is probably a wise game plan. And admittedly, you can't really tell much about how Ramy is looking from this short clip, but it is basically the only benchmark of his physique we have at this point at under 2 weeks out from the Olympia. And I'm still expecting in my predictions, I think Ramy is going to win this with a pretty clean sweep. You pretty much don't see any clips or pictures of this guy where he doesn't look insanely big. And he looks like Mr. Olympia. He is a guy that I think deserves this title, and I think he's going to hold on to it for a third year this year. Now, next up in the news, Nick Walker. A lot of people are talking about one of the latest updates from Nick Walker where he's got a very sunken-in face. Some might call it the death face. I don't think it's quite a death face yet. Obviously, it is very sunken in. I think Nick Walker, honestly, I was watching, I hadn't seen this yet, but I watched an interview that he did with Flex Lewis on Flex's new podcast, and I thought it was a phenomenal interview, and it's one of the things that made me root for Nick a lot more as a bodybuilding fan, just hearing some of the things that he went through in his past, some of the things that he overcame to get to where he's at now in bodybuilding. It just made him a very relatable guy, and it made me want to root for him even more. And he said multiple times during that Flex Lewis podcast, I will be Mr. Olympia. He also said that he promised his coach, Matt Jansen, he will win the Mr. Olympia while with Matt. And it's that kind of confidence and that kind of belief in himself that makes me want to root for him, because he said the same thing about the New York Pro. He said the same thing about the Arnold Classic. He believes it, and he says the mind is a powerful thing. That's one of the things he said in that podcast that I wholeheartedly agree with. Manifesting these things in your mind, it can make it happen. And he's manifesting for himself that he will win the Olympia. And when he says that, I believe him. I don't think that it will be this year, though. I really don't. I think Ramy's got it this year. I think Nick will improve. I had him in 4th, moving up from 5th place. There's a possibility I could see him cracking the top 3 eventually, maybe this year, and moving his way up to eventually being in the conversation for the win. And you got to think about, even if Ramy wins this year, how much longer is Ramy really going to stick around? I mean, the guy has been competing and weighing well over 300 pounds for the past over a decade now. So how much longer is Ramy really going to risk his health doing that is another question. If he wins this year, how many more titles does he want to win? How much longer will he stick around as champ? And then Brandon Curry, the runner-up for the past couple of years, he's up there in age too. He's in his 40s, so if he doesn't start winning, how much longer is Brandon Curry going to stick around? Start winning the Olympia, that is. He's still winning the other shows, like the Arnold. But how much longer would Brandon stick around? So I can see this future where Nick Walker and Hunter Labrada and Hadi Chupin, those become the top guys. And I can see a scenario where Nick wins the Olympia. Nick versus Ramy, I still don't see Nick beating Ramy unless Ramy was completely off. But I do think there's a realistic path to Nick one day winning the Olympia. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think Nick could ever win? And that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe for more Olympia coverage. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.